It's going to be mono black aggro, a deck I'm surprised to see Harlan Führer play against Keith Capstick on Demir Inverter, which seems more Harlan's speed.
Sure, I can agree with that, but one thing that we've seen from Führer in the last year in particular is really working to expand his range.
We've seen him expand his range by playing Wurza at every Modern Open.
Well, to be fair, that is a dramatic shift from playing Jeskai Control at every Modern Open.
I really enjoyed. It was a couple years ago now where he won an Open with Jeskai Control in Modern and then made the finals of a Classic with Mishra's Bobble Teamer like the week after.
Call that Teamer Box.
Unbeatable Teamer was the deck name.
No one has called it that.
Well, he lost in the finals, so it was a little bit of a misnomer.
Yeah.
But looked like Capstick was on a mulligan here.
Little bit of a team fight here as well. Harlan Führer, prominent member of Team Nova. Keith Capstick, recently announced manager of Team Lotus Box.
A lot of pride on the line.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for Führer, number 2 spot on our leaderboard, some real concrete benefits to winning this as well.
Yeah, definitely. Capstick shocked on turn 1 for a Watery Grave. It was for an end-stepped opt, as you see Führer go Urborg, Dread Wanderer. Turn 2 for Capstick, Drowned Catacomb, Thought Erasure. We'll get a look at Führer's hand. Mogi's Marauder, that's a 4 of this weekend for Harlan Führer. Rankle, Master of Prankles, Scrap Heap, Scrounger, Knight of the Ebon Legion, Mutavault in the Swamp.
Yeah, and this is an aggro deck hand, right? You got some good lands, you got some good attackers, you even got a Mutavault. Even your lands are attacking.
Has the combo Mutavault and Urborg. Quote unquote, the combo.
I mean, it is definitely a combination. They are both cards, and one of them even adds text to another.
Thought Erasure not really at its best in this matchup. Capstick staring down a bunch of threats.
Right. Generally speaking, in this matchup, a lot of it is more about playing to the battlefield and what's going on there rather than the contents of one's hand.
Führer also playing a non-English copy of Mogi's Marauder.
Love it.
Nobody knows what that card does.
Oh, look, you know what it does? It makes it so you have fewer readers.
Well, let's just put it in the graveyard. That way it doesn't matter. And Capstick's going to go ahead and surveil.
All right. Well, that costs 3. It's probably good enough. Let's get it out of here.
Another card not very good in the matchup going to the bin as Narset is surveilled over. Führer is going to play Mutavault, Scrounger, and attack for 2 with the Wanderer. Capstick to 16.
And one of the things this aggro deck does better than, say, the red deck, even though it is worse at actually reaching across, closing a game on turn 4 every time, it usually is good for 1 or 2 pieces of disruption while it is applying enough pressure to consistently kill by turn 5.
Here's an opt for Capstick. He's going to scry to the bottom and draw. Draws a Thoughtseize. See if there's a third land in the hand. Real tough for your 2/4 mana card combo deck to win on 2 lands. There is a Watery Grave. He'll play that tapped. And we'll go back to Harlan Führer. Capstick not really interested in casting that Thoughtseize. Führer is going to fire up Mutavault off of Swamp. Here's an attack for 7. So looks like Capstick does have a Fatal Push. Goes for the Mutavault. Love that. He knows about a Rankle in hand.
Right, and this also paves the way for a Knight of the Ebon Legion for Führer in a really nice way by firing up the Mutavault instead of doing anything else.
Attack for 5, put Capstick to 11. There's the Knight. It gets a counter. 5 is 4 or greater.
Good maths.
I'm killing it on the maths this weekend. Capstick's going to draw. Once again, looking just on the table at another swing for 7. You can't really just take those all day. He does just pass, though. No 4th land, no nothing.
Right, and this is a spot where Capstick kind of realizes that he's far enough behind on the battlefield that he needs to actually just work on what Führer is attacking with rather than committing a ton to card selection or something in that vein.
The creature's attack, Hero's Downfall takes care of the knight. Post-combat, Fira plays land number 3 and a Bloodsoaked Champion. Back to Capstick. He will draw. This inverter deck, to my knowledge, the main deck, there's really no kind of catch-up on the battlefield mechanic. There's nothing that really does anything here.
No, the way that you're best at catching up on the battlefield is winning the game.
That's a good way to catch up.
Yeah, no, I definitely endorse it, but times like this you can struggle a bit when you actually just need to be able to catch up.
Right. There's a Dig Through Time in hand, and there's 6 cards in the graveyard. It's a fine place to start. And that's going to be the play. Take a look at the top 7. Looking for some combination of mana and interaction. There is a Fatal Push and an Island in the top 7. I think it's pretty hard to pass on a Fatal Push here.
Right, and the other side of things is you could even see, so we don't know, we being Capstick, doesn't know about the Fatal Push that Fear has picked up. That was right after the last time Capstick saw the hand. So could even be a draw here where you take, say, a land and something else, and then develop a Thassa's Oracle as a blocker.
All right, so Capstick's going to play an island, pass with those 2 mana up. We know about a Rankle in Fear's hand. A 4th land would get him there. Doesn't have that, but he will attack with the 3 creatures. Capstick's going to use Island as Underground Sea because of Urborg, and there's 2 Fatal Pushes. Urborg doing some work here. Capstick only goes to 4.
This is what happens every time I've ever played with or against an Urborg, is it was way better for the other person.
Right. You know, like every time I try to Blood Moon people, they're just a red deck. All right, so here is Thassa's Oracle for Capstick. Fear did have a follow-up Knight of the Ebon Legion. That was the draw. Capstick looks at 2, doesn't want either. Those go to the bottom.
And at this point, we see Capstick actually missing the inverter.
Just passes. Scrounger is going to return here for Fear. And this attack sure looks lethal. Capstick does have some mana up, though. Fatal Push on the Oracle. Yeah, that's quite lethal. Capstick's going to pick him up. Quick game 1 in the favor of Mono Black aggro. And we want to talk about the narrative of Pioneer on the tour here. This is our first individual Pioneer Open, but our first team open with Pioneer seat. We saw 4 inverted decks in the top 4. The next time, we saw none. We saw Mono Black aggro among the top 4. Feels like this is one of the decks that's pushing back against the combos.
And the nice thing is something we kind of talked about a little bit earlier is this deck is not the best at the blistering fast starts. Sometimes you'll have your pile of Savannah Lions in the first couple turns, but most of the time you're going to have those draws like we saw that last time where Fear had a little bit of interaction and then was good at just attacking for enough damage to close the game on turn, say, 5 or 6 through a bunch of interaction. And that's likely why Fear has leaned into it this weekend. It's just the fact that if you actually slant your deck in the direction of combo, it's pretty easy to feel favored in those when you have Disruption backed up by a good clock.
Players doing some sideboarding, and you can check out the players' sideboards on the Cardboard Live extension. Fortunately, we can't get them up on the screen during the time-shifted match, but Capstick's looking for some more interaction. A card that I am seeing missing here, he doesn't have any kind of Infest, in fact. He doesn't have the Cry of the Carnarium, but he does have some nice ones in Kalida's Trader of Get, Legion's End, a few spot removal spells.
Right, and we even see a point you could make for leaning into Pack Rat when you're on the play. If you expect Fear to be boarding out things like Fatal Push, there's a point where if you just say make a 1-1 on 2, a 2-2 on 3, and then on 4 you make a third Pack Rat, that brick walls a lot of the 1-2s.
And Fear is bringing in Leyline of the Void, something that we observed covering Russell Lee playing Mono Black in Philadelphia, was that the one Leyline games were great against some of these decks. Drawing multiples was very bad, but it looks like Fear has just one to start here. Capstick starting on Fedipul's Island Jace for this Prodigy. Fear has a Fatal Push for that. Just 2 tapped Castle Locthwains as the first lands, though.
You know, those always sound so free.
Tapped Watery Grave for Capstick. Now we see Fear play Swamp, Knight of the Ebon Legion, Scrap Heap, Scrounger. So there's the pressure. See, Capstick plays a Choked Estuary. Reveals a basic land. Times are tough for these allied color mana bases.
Yeah, no, I was so excited that I never played Choked Estuary in Standard. And then it got me in an Eternal format, which, what a sentence.
You were not expecting that.
No, not at all.
Second Scrap Heap Scrounger, another Knight to replace the one that was pushed. Capstick's at 17. There's a Tyrant scoring for the Knight, but there's still 2 Scrap Heap Scroungers and Fear firing off his Thoughtseize. And Capstick really nowhere near this Dazer time, the other spell taken from the hand.
You say nowhere near. There are a few lands in the battlefield.
5 is not quite 8. Let me do some quick maths.
Well, that was quick, and it was maths.
Mogies is for Marauder. Speaking of 8, here's an attack for 8, and Capstick's at 9.
I think it's pronounced haste.
I'm pretty bad at pronouncing. That pronunciation's your department.
It's a whole thing, you know.
It's a group effort.
I say Eidolon, you say Eidolon.
Let's just call the whole thing off.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a Midwest thing, maybe.
There's not a lot of Eidolons in the Midwest, actually. That's probably why we pronounced it wrong.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar. You know, I'm not there that much. But we're there this weekend.
All right, here is a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. It's going to have to find a nice one for Capstick. Exile the top 2 cards of his library because of that ley line and draws a card. But that card has to do something about these creatures quickly. He'll play an Urborg.
This actually does buy a good bit of life. Because unless this is actually lethal, then it creates a situation where Capstick could just rip the Inverter of Truth and win the game on the spot.
Yeah, and you do see Fear respected. He attacks down the Jace, plays a Mutavault for turn. And actually just the entire team went that way. You can't really risk having one of these things destroyed.
Yeah, that would just be the most embarrassing way to lose when it doesn't really impact your clock, right? It doesn't change how long it's going to take you to kill the opponent.
Yeah, the Mutavault just means this is a lethal attack altogether next turn.
Exactly, so you just actually have the luxury of playing it safe in that scenario.
Capstick plays a land and passes. Fear is going to draw off a castle. Has a Knight and now picks up a Swamp, but he's going to shove for lethal. We'll see what Capstick has to say about it. I want to say there's a Hero's Downfall in hand. That can buy him a turn, kind of.
Yeah, technically.
Mutavault is animated. Here's an attack. It is for 10. Capstick's going to fire off that Downfall. But this is just a mess. Scrap Heap Scroungers just come back. Mutavault Marauder, just 2/2s. You're using your 3-mana catch-all kill spell on a 2/2.
Yeah, this is a spot where Capstick is trying to figure out, all right, what cards can I draw that lead to me winning the game? And what do I need to do this turn to maximize the number of cards that lead to me getting an additional draw step?
And with the sideboard being being Cletus, not Cry of the Carnarium, you can't just like tag the Mutavault and hope to peel that. And the Cletus also might just not do enough on its own. So we see Scrap Heap Scrounger taken down. Fear is going to deploy that Knight post-combat. That's going to grow. 5 points came across. Capstick's going to draw. He's going to cast an Opt. But he's got a lot of ground to make up here. He scries to the bottom, draws a card. Can he buy another turn? He cannot, and Harlan Fear is going to advance to 4-0.